The college football experience early win totals season preview episode on the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Game Time, your home for the lowest priced last minute tickets. Download the Game Time app today. Use that promo code SGPN for $20 off. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Play Underdogs Pick'em for a chance to win 100 times the amount of money you enter. Promo code TCE SGPN at UnderdogFantasy.com for 100% deposit match. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Yes, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com. Use that promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month. And start making smarter bets today, people. And remember, as always, folks, too, let it ride.
This is Jerry Glanville, and you're listening to SGPN. Let it ride, brother.
Yes. Woo! Welcome to the college football experience. Early season win totals. What is it? It's February 21st. We got win totals for the Power Five, and we're going to break it all down, folks. Glad to have you here. Hopefully you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/the college experience. And if you're wondering who the hell you're listening to, well, that is 100% fair. My name is Colby Swinging Database Dan, aka Pick Dundee. That's not a pick. This is a pick.
He was raised in the land down under, where a man thinks on his feet, speaks with his fists, and lives by his wits.
When Dundee happened, he was a superstar.
I'm probably drinking too much and celebrating too much and not sleeping. Would have killed a normal man, but no, that's gone. The medical advice I got from that was like being hit by lightning. Pretend it never happened and get on with your life.
We're already in the season. College football. We're not. I know the Big 12 preview was a little rough. NC Net at the Red Roof Inn, the internet, a little stagnant, but it's okay. Still out
fitting
there
for the Big 12.
You gotta decode. Sometimes you gotta work hard to decode some stuff. Earn it. I am joined by my co-host. Give it up for former JMU Duke defensive back, the burrito eating, sideline kiss stealing, wheeling and dealing, Patty C in the place to be.
Hi-oh!
Let's get it going. Big 12, Big 10, SEC, ACC, and Notre Dame win totals. Oh, they're all out. We are also joined by third man in the booth, the DFS god himself. He's still playing college basketball at DFS every single night. Get on in and make sure you check out the college basketball experience while you're doing it. Give it up for the Rooftop IPA drinking, homebrew making, Tobacco Road living, the free lock giving, former Herndon Basketball League MVP. Give it up for NC Nick in the place to be.
There we go. What's going on, guys? Good to be back at the home base.
Yes, good to hear that song again. It's a real panty dropper.
You've definitely laid a chick to that before, haven't you?
Oh, I mean, Brian Bosworth. I would just assume he's on the Wilt Chamberlain level.
Yeah.
Just got to make that assumption. I watched that Stone Cold movie.
And I wouldn't put it past Bosworth to play that song often.
It's true.
Himself.
I picture him. I think he moved out of Malibu. I think he's in Austin, Texas. But I just picture him driving around Austin, Texas. That thing blaring out the speakers, saying hello to any
like chick, like an 85 vet or something.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's like Billy Madison. He gets out, he sits on his car hood, blasting that thing, still a little ripped. Shout out to the great Brian Bosworth.
Kind of like Ed O'Neill in Little Giants. Same vibe.
I can see that too. Yeah.
Exactly.
Or
it's a
deep
deep pull.
Bosworth. Yeah, as the guy that is the father of the kid. Who's Anyway, I wish I could say the actor's name. I have no idea who the fuck that is. But if you haven't seen Little Giants, check out Little Giants. Anything Ed O'Neill, for the most part, I think is
I introduced my daughters to it recently. They loved it.
Yeah, there you go. So before we jump into these win totals, got to talk a little bit about the news in the world. Georgia State head coach Shawn Elliott just made a bowl last year. He says, okay, Danny Granger's gone. So the fuck am I? He leaves to be the tight ends coach of South Carolina.
Head coach at a bowl level G5 school to tight ends coach at a mid-ass Power 5 school.
Well, the irony is that Shane Beamer's on the hot seat. Like, some of the logic was, well, if he didn't win this year, they might fire him next year. He was on the hot seat, finished fourth in the Sun Belt, I think, or fifth in the Sun Belt last year. But it's not like Shane Beamer's not on the hot seat.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, I know he was previously
played each other recently. It was a close game too, I want to say.
I think so, in Columbia.
I know Georgia State played Auburn really tight, but I thought they played South Carolina recently.
I think you're right. Like game. Season opener. I think it got out of hand on block punts, but it was a close game because of that, or prior to that. But I think we need to talk about this because this is becoming a real problem. I did a little graphic, youtube.com/the college experience. So I went back, tried to go through. I'm pretty sure this is all the coaches since the year 2000. Now, it was a little tricky because Idaho was in the FBS and the FCS, and so I don't know that I paid. It's fairly accurate, I believe. I did a list. If you're watching on youtube.com/the college experience, we're going to show it to the people. These are the only head coaches that have left for coordinator roles. And I misspelled coordinator. Fantastic. But
did you?
Yeah, isn't it 1-0?
No, I think you got it.
Because it's a coordinator.
I think you got it.
Yeah.
I think you got it.
Yeah. All right. No.
Look at that.
You're a fucking genius. Never doubt yourself.
I misspelled my name. Let me check the last check I wrote. So you see what's ironic here is, look, 2012, Todd Monken left Southern Miss for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I couldn't find one in the 2000s prior to that. Then you had in 2018, Gary Anderson left Oregon State head coaching position to become the defensive coordinator at Utah State, which is still shocking. But he had previously been a head coach at Utah State, so there's a little bit of logic there, right? And then since last season, so 13 months, you've had 6 coaches now. Sean Lewis last year, 13 months ago, Kent State to Colorado. Now he's the head coach at San Diego State, so that worked for him. Jeff Hafley this year left Boston College to be the defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. And then Maurice Lindquist, the Buffalo Bulls head coach, left for Alabama. Kane Womack, who was doing great with South Alabama, he was not on the hot seat by any means. Like Lindquist, you can make the argument, and Hafley, you could say, well, maybe they were on the hot seat. Sean Lewis was nowhere near the hot seat. They would have given him a lifetime contract. Kane Womack was doing really good at South Alabama. And Shawn Elliott, you could argue, was doing decent at Georgia State as he left for South Carolina. And then you have the Chip Kelly situation. Maybe you can argue deserved to be fired. I didn't think he deserved to be fired at UCLA, but he had
Chip
for Ohio
Kelly
State.
One is the most shocking of all. All those other ones are G5 to P5.
I still
think
except
for Gary Anderson, but
yeah,
those are extenuating circumstances. But
the Kane Womack one's pretty shocking to me because you're at South Alabama, and to me, this is just look at that. That's six times. So the prior 22 years, there was two. And we have 6 in the past 13 months. I think it's a scary time for the future of college football because, and I know all things change, but man, is this going to be the regular now? That like, if you get a, hey, you want to be our running backs coach, leave, your head coaching position at Ball State or wherever to become, because the gap is that big that they can pay them more.
Well, it would be interesting to see a graphic of FCS head coaches going to take coordinator roles at the FBS level. I would imagine there's more, and that's basically what we have here with the Power 2 or the Power 4, however you want to break it down, because the haves are getting a lot wealthier and the have-nots are getting poorer. So the separation is only widening. So this really shouldn't come as any surprise, even though it's unfortunate.
Well, I think it's surprising just because of the history of college football. Before, it's like you become a head coach, that's what you want. You leave for other head coaching positions. You don't leave for a coordinator position. But
not only is it more money with these big schools, but also the job of a college football head coach has changed, like we've discussed before. And now there's a lot more responsibilities that don't involve X's and O's coaching football. Some of these guys, that's probably what they want to do. So if they can make the same or more money to deal with less bullshit, I mean, that sounds like a win-win, right?
Yeah. It's just unfortunate to me. It's like, I mean, first thing, Georgia State had already started spring practice. They're in the middle of spring practice. He's like, you know what? I'm taking the tight ends coach job at South Carolina. And I get it. I understand he's pissed off that a lot of their best players, Jamari Thrash and their top defensive end transferred to South Carolina the year before. They've been a farm system. They've turned into a farm system for the Power 5. And maybe that's frustrating. You're like, hey, I go out, I recruit this 2-star and I turn him into a decent player. And we don't even get him there for his best years. Like he leaves and here I'm doing the same thing. I don't know if that has something to do with it. Do you think that has something to do with the Patty C?
I would think so. Of course. I mean, I've heard, I don't know if it was which college coach, I'm not recalling off the top of my head. I think it was basketball, but they were saying, so much of what I coach for is the relationships, and to develop players. And then player development is no longer a guaranteed part of the job because you don't get to see it through to its conclusion, And so, yeah, I would think that would be a majorly disappointing aspect of it. I think that maybe it was already on the threshold before with all of the stuff you had to do, as a head coach. You're basically the shield for everything. You're shielding your coordinators. You're having to, deal with the fans, the administration, the media, this, that, and the other. And it's like you probably don't get to coach a lot of X's and O's, which is probably why a lot of coaches get into the game in the first place, that and the relationships, like we said. But I think it probably with this extra stuff, like you said, the NIL, the transfers, like it may have just finally crossed over where it's like, all right, dude, I don't actually want to fucking do the head coach. It sucks ass. And I'd rather be a coordinator, especially if you're getting paid like a mofo to be a coordinator.
At the same time, did you guys see what Kenny Dillingham said, the coach of Arizona State?
Yes.
I kind of appreciate that too.
He was responding to Will Hall's comments of Southern Miss that says, I'm on the road. I never coach football anymore. He's like, I don't have time to sit there and think of football. I'm out there, recruiting, checking out the transfer portal, scouting players, and talking to donors to try to get their NIL up. I think he was responding to that saying, hey, we all bitch. All right. I was doing crazy things for a cup of coffee back in the day. This is the job we signed on for. So,
he said, I spent 9 years of my life doing anything to become a coffee boy, so don't give me that. It's hard to coach right now. Yeah, it is hard. Then quit, and
hey, you're still a millionaire.
I was going to say, before we feel so bad for these coaches, they do make a ton of money. They're not roofing in the South in the summer. They're not, snow plowing in Buffalo. They're not digging ditches. So has the job changed? The job description has changed, but they still get rewarded quite handsomely. So it is what it is. But this is why that we talk about some of the old guard exiting, because they don't need the money and they don't want the new hustle, which is being a college football head coach right now. So we will see a changing of the guard.
I just find it ironic that they bitch about the portal and then like the first opportunity they go. Like Chip Kelly always talks shit about the portal, and NIL. And it's like you just took a much better. I mean, I don't know. I guess.
Here's the thing: they are professionals. College kids, it's amateurism. That's my pushback on. Wait, am I still here?
Yeah,
we can hear you. The
video's gone. I'm gonna get off and get back on in a second. But while I'm still here, or while you can still hear me, I think. Yeah, I mean, I think we have to come to terms with whether this is amateurism or whether this is professional sport. If it's professional sport and free agency, even then there's more of a demand on pros to, adhere to their contractual obligations than there are on these college kids who have basically are at the point of, 100% leverage, benefit. Obviously, they're not making quite the money that the pros are, but they're starting to approach it, And
the numbers for the people going to the NFL draft, the underclassmen, is way down, and that's strictly NIL based, I would imagine. But
for sure,
I saw a gigantic. I forget the percentage. The draft is looking to be the weakest it's been in a while, because I want to say like it's 60% of the players that would normally come out early.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
But that'll balance itself out in a couple of years. Then you'll just have almost all seniors coming out, so you might have like 1 or 2 weak draft classes, but then if that's the trend and that continues, then it'll balance itself out in a couple of years.
Yeah. I just find it ironic that they always bitch about the portal, and then they're the ones, and I get your point, Patty C, but I would also say and I'll even push back to people that are super pissed off about all the change. You see Johnny Manziel come out and say, let me see if I can pull up his comments, because that was hilarious. His dad was negotiating. He wasn't aware of it, but his dad at the time, when he came out early, was negotiating.
He was working with the bag man
for $3 million. $3 million for one season. So my problem is this: to anyone that's mad, to me, especially if they're SEC fans or USC fans or Ohio State fans, they were the fucking problem. They were the fucking problem to me. They were always cheating, and they created this ridiculous disparity. What's that, Nick?
They're mad because before there was only, a handful of schools doing that, maybe 10, maybe 20 or something. Now everybody can pay.
Yeah. SMU's back at the table and they don't like it.
Yeah. I mean, really though, it's true. Like, I saw some people saying, "Oh, college football is sold down the river" and stuff like that. I saw people talking about this in the chat after we posted our last episode, and it was like, this. I mean, first off, it was always happening. But to me, if you want to blame anyone, it's probably your own fan base. You know what I mean? Like, that created this ridiculous disparity. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't Air Force out there. It wasn't. This is the blue bloods of college football. Yeah, this is the blue bloods of college football fucking it up for everybody else and getting us in this spot. I don't think enough people talk about that.
I just think the popularity of it is the problem, and that's why. I mean, whenever there's millions, billions of dollars involved, that's when it turns into more of a business. So unfortunately, college football is so fucking awesome that, especially once you have gambling and once you have cable or satellite or streaming, and you can watch all these games. Really, the popularity of college football is what is turning it into what it is now. And I don't know if there's any way around that.
Yeah.
When there's that much money, you're basically dealing with pro sports. That's what it is.
Yeah. But let's not be blind about it. That shit was happening before. Texas A&M was the one that bought Eric Dickerson's Cadillac or whatever the fuck it was, his Corvette, and he didn't even play for A&M. He didn't even fucking play for A&M. That was happening in the 1981. If it might have been 79 or 80, because I'm doing the math. I was like, wait, wasn't he a rookie in 83? So that's probably 1979, or 78, something like that. Yeah,
I mentioned this on a college basketball podcast, I think, but there's people saying now that John Wooden might have, paid some guys to build that dynasty in the 60s at UCLA.
No, there's a book about this. Bear Bryant was having when he was at A&M. Like, you're talking a long fucking time ago, pre-Alabama. He was flying. He had someone
Junction Boys
days. A crop duster would fly over a guy's house, and they drop a bag out by his farm from the plane.
He had a biplane.
Yes, that was they would have a bunch of money tied in a Texas A&M flag, right? And it's like, dude, this is happening. This is like 1950. It's 1950. So I mean, this goes back a long way. Don't be fucking naive to think all of a sudden this thing just happened.
When you mentioned crop dusting, I thought you were talking about Patty C in the studio.
Been known to do that here and there. A couple too many fat tires and the crop dust happened.
There was a little bit of other news. The college football playoff model, they finally agreed to go with the 5-7 playoff model. So it's not, obviously, the Pac-12 is done pretty much. The Pac-2 existed, but so instead of 6 and 6, it's 5 and 7. That is at least for 2 years. There was some other breaking news that I thought was very interesting.
What do you think? For all intents and purposes, that's kind of the same thing. Now that we're down to 4 power conferences.
Yeah, I don't think that's a big headline.
Yeah.
Well, I think a big headline is the potential talk of 4 auto bids for the Big Ten and SEC.
That is
because that leaves then just 4 spots for what
everyone else,
7 other conferences and an independent, Notre Dame.
Yeah,
it's all
that's
happening,
ridiculous.
Man.
If that happens,
all happening.
Fuck the SEC and Big Ten, man. They're just the greediest little bitches.
They'll probably get that once it goes to 16. I bet they'll both get 4 auto.
Actually, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that a little bit because this Pete Thamel just reported this about 4 hours ago. Source: the idea of a 14-team college football playoff was discussed today by CFB management committee at the meetings in Dallas. It would begin in 2026. Nothing is imminent, but significant. The idea was being discussed right now. So 14. So that, you know what that is though? That's those 2. That's what, no bye weeks. Is that then? Would that be?
No, there'd still be 2 teams with a bye at that point.
Yeah, you would need 16 to have no bye weeks.
So why would they not just go to 16? I was thinking they would jump to 16 just because they'll see how much, State College Pennsylvania makes compared to Tuscaloosa had a bye week or Athens Georgia had a bye week. Did you see what State College Pennsylvania just raked in financially?
Yeah, well, I don't know exactly. I don't know how this works exactly, but we definitely know the SEC and the Big Ten want 4 teams each. I don't know if that is possible to get everybody else to buy in with a 12-team playoff. So what
they shouldn't. They need to hold strong.
They should, for sure.
They should hold strong because what happens if they have a fucking down year? I mean, look, maybe the SEC, but we previewed the Big Ten schedule. Go listen to we've done all the schedules. Go listen to all of them. The Big Ten, you're sitting there, and I don't know about you guys, but especially once DeBauer left for Bama and Chip Kelly left for UCLA, I'm like, are they even better with these teams? Maybe it's slightly because of Oregon. Like USC's not that good. At least recently, they haven't been that good. And then you're like, well, UCLA right now, they're broke. They just hired a kind of they went with the cheap hire. Maybe it works out for them. And then Washington, who knows what they're going to do with Jed Fish?
And down. Yeah.
You're kind of looking at it like it's not that strong of a conference. I think you could make the argument that maybe on certain years, the ACC and Big 12 could be much better than the Big 10.
Yeah. The ACC just needs one of, their teams that has that potential to come up and win a couple titles and say, you know what, fuck you guys. You're not that much better of a conference than us.
Dude, I think right now the Big 10, they lost Harbaugh too. So you're sitting there like,
yeah, it's true.
You got
but they're also about to be raking in even
a shit ton
more
of money.
So it's going to be tough. It's going to be tougher and tougher for the ACC, the Big 12, and others to compete at that highest of level. Sure, you might have some teams. First off, let's see what happens with the ACC. I mean, that's still extremely up in the air. But yeah, you might have some teams like Utah might be able to hang 1 year, or Clemson might be able to hang 1 year. But to have like 4 teams worthy of a shot, I don't know if it's gonna. Like I said, the halves are getting much more money.
If you're putting in the 4th place team in the Big 10, get the fuck out of here. If you're going to give an auto bid to a 8-4 Minnesota team, get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? Like,
it's not going to be an 8-4 Minnesota.
Well, who would it be?
In a what 18 team Big 10? You're going to have at worst like a 10-2 team, I would think, in 4th place.
No, they're not going to have 4 10-2 teams. No way.
I doubt it, but possibly.
Maybe a 9-3 team. Maybe a 9-3 team.
Yeah.
Because
which is annoying. I don't want a 9-3 fucking auto bid. Fuck that.
Right. That is rewarding.
I'd rather have an 11-1 Western Michigan in there.
Yeah. And speaking of which, Florida State, you see the ACC might negotiate them to buy their way out of their grant of rights deal. So the ACC takes in a bunch of money. And then I read an article.
Well, that's blue blood bias. I don't know if I trust anything those dudes are reporting.
But also, like, we thought that might happen. We thought they'd end up settling somewhere. Like
I read an article about teams that the ACC would try to replace them with, and San Diego State came up. Tulane came up. I think 24/7 Sports did this. South Florida. Who was the 4th team?
Memphis, UConn.
Memphis.
No?
Yeah.
Memphis.
No, UConn. UConn was the 4th. It wasn't even Memphis. I found that shocking that the 4 they mentioned were San Diego State, South Florida, Tulane, and UConn, not Memphis. Anyway, that's something
for
to
ACC,
monitor. Yeah, if they lose Florida State, would they go grab one of those?
Well, we thought, with going back to Florida State real quick, we thought that I don't think Florida State's going to get out for free, but also they probably won't have to pay, the
$500 million.
Yeah, however much like the maximum amount would be. We
They also
thought
need
would
a home.
settle. Yeah, and
Are they just going to be independent? I mean,
Someone's gonna snatch them up. Come on.
probably the Big Ten, I guess, but I mean, there's potential issues with that because right now it sounds like the SEC. I mean, do they really want Florida State?
well, I think the problem is right now you're tapped out as far as
Right.
you've reached the most the TV networks will pay.
Right,
So if you add another team, you're lowering the amount of money
Right.
for each school.
right. And I mean, could the Big 12 pay more than the ACC? Yes, but I don't know if it's that much more where it outweighs
Yeah.
all the penalty fees.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think you either do that with an invite for the Big Ten or
Florida State's not
SEC.
leaving the ACC to go to the Big 12.
Or
Yeah,
they
might. I could see
or they-
independent.
I was gonna say, or they pocket all that Saudi money and go independent.
Yeah, yeah.
Let me ask you this. I know we're about to get into college win totals and all this conversation, like just trying to figure out where are we in college? What is the story of college football that we're trying to focus on for 2024? I feel like it had culminated here with Michigan beating the SEC, beating Bama, winning a national title. That's kind of like the thing we've been building to for a long time. Obviously, Georgia's journey to the top was also something that has culminated. But here we are with a whole new college football situation in front of us, and then Saban's gone, Harbaugh's gone. Like I don't really know what to look for from is it Dion? It's probably too early for him. I think the story of college football impacts win totals a little bit. Maybe I'm talking out of my
story of
ass.
college football this year is new teams and new conferences and the expanded playoff. And I think there's going to be a lot of excitement around these new matchups and excitement around, especially down the stretch, which teams are on the bubble, if you will, to use a college basketball term. So I think some of these new matchups and the race for the playoffs is going to be interesting.
Yeah, and I would say also you could add in, can Ryan Day take down Michigan and get Ohio State to the promised land? You got that. You got, can Kirby Smart get back because they're coming in as probably the preseason #1.
I see Jeff Sharp in the chat saying Ohio State futures ticket on Natty right now, and
Hey,
I definitely
agree.
think
I agree.
I think they're looking really good. I think probably the strongest team in the Big Ten. I think they're definitely going to the playoffs, and then who knows what'll happen.
Yeah.
Also, shout out to Deshaun McQueen in the chat talking about Alabama and recruiting. That might be for a different pod, but I don't think they're going to just fall off the face of the earth.
I think the reason why he's mentioning that is that Kalen DeBauer, even with making the national championship at Washington, wasn't necessarily doing great recruiting wise. But
yeah,
I still think, don't worry, Alabama will put up the money. They're a name brand. Once again, I'll bring up the point. I know Nick Saban was incredible there, but Gene Stallings won national championships there. Bear Bryant, this is coach proof to me. You know what I mean? Like Alabama's Alabama.
That's true, but
coach.
They could. I mean, Nick Saban, for all the grief you give him as potential X's and O's or whatever type of coach, the one thing you've always given him credit for is he's always been able to take in elite talent. He had like 10 straight #1 recruiting classes. That will never probably ever happen again. So he is an elite recruiter. Maybe from a talent standpoint, Alabama does slide back into like the bottom of the top 10.
True, but I'm just saying, Kalen DeBauer just went to the national championship with the 40th ranked recruiting class, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So
they're not going to suck.
Yeah. It will be very interesting to watch. And with that, let's take a look at these win totals because they release these, and that's one thing I love about gambling. Getting what North Carolina's got a legal when, NC Nick?
March 1st, if all goes well. So right around the corner.
Let's go. And with that, you're getting these win totals earlier and earlier. So we had to do an episode breaking down the early win totals. Now they've only released them for the Power 5, but we thought it was worth doing an episode to look into each and every conference and see where there's value. I remember last season, early in the year when Dion went to Colorado, I know that settled at like 4.5, but I think out the gate it was like 2.5. Loaded up on that. There was a couple others there where you could find great value there. So
Well, usually this is like 3 months early because usually it's around like May, right?
Yeah.
Mid-May, early June. So I think some of these lines or these totals will change. They will definitely, from here to August. But there is value if you get in early.
Let's go. Look, so we're going to go conference by conference. But before we do that, I want to tell you that the college football experience is brought to you by Game Time. Buying tickets to your favorite event shouldn't be that stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all sports, music, comedy, and theater that is near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll be having at that very event. So what are you doing, folks? Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use that redeeming code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Once again, terms apply. Create that account. Redeeming code SGPN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Let's put a tickets lowest price guaranteed. We're also brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Look, Underdog Fantasy has a way to play alongside your favorite fantasy players all season long. They got NBA, they got NHL, and you better believe they got college basketball and college football. Simply pick higher or lower in your favorite players' fantasy stats and cash in. You can win 100 times the amount of money you enter with some of their spicy plays. So what are you doing, folks? Watch along, make picks, make that extra cash on Underdog's mobile app or website, UnderdogFantasy.com. When you sign up, make sure you sign up with the promo code TCESGPN. Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code TCESGPN. All right, we are back on the college football experience, and let's take a look at the first team, the first conference, the ACC. Put Notre Dame in here because they're kind of members. I don't know, but here we are, the brand new ACC. I'm going to rattle these off in case you're listening to this on the audio side. Boston College has an over-under of 4.5 wins under Bill O'Brien, even though they added multiple O'Briens to the coaching staff. California, the Golden Bears, year one in the ACC, 6.5 is that win total. The Clemson Tigers sitting there at 9.5, and the Duke Blue Devils, Manny Diaz era begins, 6.5 win total. Is what it is right now. Florida State, they lose everybody. Mike Norvell goes out and gets DJ Ukulele, and all of a sudden the win total still looking good, 9.5 for the Seminoles. Georgia Tech, we talked about them being one of the hardest schedules in the ACC. They have a win total of 5.5. The Louisville Cardinals, Jeff Brohm, can he get back to the ACC championship? That win total sitting at 8.5, and then the Miami Hurricanes. Whew. It's bold. It's bold considering they haven't looked great the past couple of years. Miami's got a win total sitting at 9.5.
I'm gonna go bet that right now.
Yes, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Who, if you take a look at that schedule, I kind of like this one. Their win total sitting at 9.5 for the Irish. Then North Carolina, the Tar Heels. Mac Brown, can he turn back that clock? Can he get a natty? Can he go to the playoffs in Chapel Hill? That win total sitting at 8.5. The Pussy Pack, NC State, with Dave Doran, their win total sitting at 8.5 as well. And the Pitt Panthers, Narduzzi, tough days, 5.5 is the win total. SMU, year one, they've been waiting to spend that money. 7.5 is the win total. That could be a nice Vegas saying, hey, 8-4, year one, 7-5. That'd be a great first year in the ACC. Stanford, the Cardinal, 3.5 is the win total. The Orangemen of Syracuse have that win total at 6.5. in Fran Brown's first season there. And the Wahoos, Patty C's Wahoos, the win total is 4.5. The Hokies of Virginia Tech, I know Ryan Kramer's excited about them. 11 starters back on the offensive side of the ball. Win total sitting at 7.5. And don't forget about Dave Clawson and Wake Forest bringing in Hank Bachmeier. Win total sitting at 4.5. All right, gentlemen. I mean, the first thing that jumped out to you, NC Nick, what's the first thing that jumped out to you doing this?
Miami at 9.5. Are you freaking kidding me? I get that their schedule is very manageable, but who has faith in Miami to win double-digit regular season wins? That's crazy if you ask me.
Yeah, and I know they opened the season in Gainesville, but I do remember when we were previewing the season schedule there, we were high on the Canes schedule.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's definitely one of the easiest, I'd say one of the easier 5 in the conference. But still 10. I mean, they can only lose 2 times for you to cash that ticket.
And you start off in the swamp, you know what I mean? Like they could be 0-1, and then it's like you have to pretty much you're only afforded 1 loss the rest of the way.
play Florida State. You also play at Louisville, the two teams in the ACC championship game last year. You have a tough trip at Cal. I mean, maybe the average college football fan is going to laugh at that and just chalk up Miami as a win. I'm telling you, that's very foolish.
At Cal is definitely not a gimme.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. They got Virginia Tech, who's supposed to be very good.
Georgia Tech. I feel like Georgia Tech's won 3 of 5 against them. So
Miami
they got to
could
go to
lose
Bobby
to
Dodd.
anybody.
Yeah.
Miami they're going to beat Florida A&M and Ball State. Every other game is, you could argue is somewhat of a toss-up.
Let me push back a hair. Right, Cam Ward's a difference maker. Right.
I think, and they got Reese Poffenberger backing him up. So the quarterback room is just impressive. All right.
Which has typically been a struggle for Miami. Obviously every position has been a struggle for Miami, and coaching has been a struggle for Miami. I think you're right. I think 9.5, typically and ridiculously optimistic in favor of Miami. So once again, fade the Hurricanes.
I think this podcast has bet the under on Miami the last 5 years, and I think we've hit 4 of them.
No, one of those years I got foolish, and I was like, you know what? Their schedule sucks. I think it was Cristobal's first year. I was like, their schedule's weak as fuck. I was like, they're gonna win 8 or 9. I think the win total was 7.5, and of course they went 5 and 7. But the one that jumped out to me that I thought, and I know I rated it as a hard schedule. I think Stanford is going to smash that over. I just think Stanford is going to smash that over. I just think the fact these guys are going to have the conference has to come to the West Coast. It's year 2 of Troy Taylor. I just think they could smash. I wouldn't shock me if they beat TCU in the opener. I think that's going to be an up and down game. No defense, a lot of offense. Then they get Cali. So you're looking at 2 wins. They could easily be 2-0. Now I'd favor TCU, but not by much. And then they have Syracuse on the schedule. They have, Virginia Tech's got to play in California. SMU's got to play in California. Wake Forest has to play in California. They get San Jose State late in the year. And Stanford Cal, let's be honest, who the fuck knows who's going to win that game? I just thought, to me, I would have said it more like 5.5 for Stanford. So I think the 3.5 there, you jump on the Cardinals or the Cardinal.
He went 3-9 last year against a very stacked Pac-12.
It was a tougher schedule last year. It was year 1 and they won 3. You have to assume they could win 1 more. They played a lot of young guys. We all like the coaching hire. It makes sense to be on the over here. I agree.
Oh, and they let's not forget they played a 9-game conference schedule and Notre Dame. So you're playing just there. That's a much harder schedule. So now Notre Dame's still on the schedule, but they still have an 8-game conference schedule now as opposed to a 9-game. So that's the one that jumped out to me right away. Patty C, was there one that jumped out to you and say, besides the Wahoos, are you taking that over or under?
Well, I think they probably got that one about right. I will say that, the fact that both quarterbacks are back and competing, I think is probably a good thing. And not only from a continuity standpoint, but from, iron sharpening iron and getting the best out of the quarterback position. I think Tony Elliott might surprise. I know Colby hates him or, doubts him, but I think they're bound to improve a little bit, but still 4.5 seems about right. The team really just at a glance that jumped out to me, and reviewing their schedule, I still feel that way, although not quite as strongly, is SMU at 7.5. I think them getting to 8 wins, obviously at Nevada and hosting HC, what is that? Fucking
Houston Christian,
Houston Christian. That's 2-0. But BYU in the non-conference, and then TCU in the non-conference.
Yeah, BYU and TCU, they're playing 10 Power 5s.
Yeah, so that's tough. And then you got Florida State, you got road trips to Louisville, and you got 3 in a row on the road. I just feel like it's kind of maybe a similar situation to what Cincinnati faced, where it's like the weekly grind.
Not just Cincinnati, all the new teams of the Big 12 last year.
Yeah. A game against like Pittsburgh might have been one of the bigger games on their schedule last year. Now it's one of the easier games, and it's still going to be a fucking challenge for him. So I think I feel like the over for SMU at 7.5 is a decent play.
The over?
Or in the under.
Oh, okay. Okay. Had me confused for a second because I'm looking at this and I'd say the ACC is not quite as good as the Big 12 was last year, and SMU maybe on par with some of those teams.
They played well last year.
Oh, they did, but they had a pretty easy damn schedule too.
Yeah,
but I think this is definitely taking a step up in weight classes. So if anything, I would definitely be on the under with SMU. Going back to UVA real quick, Off Grid Sports in the chat has UVA bowling this year. Where I know Patty's kind of high on UVA. I could be talked into an over also, but I think Colby's on under.
I feel pretty good about the under.
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it. Look, I thought fucking Musket played well at times, and I thought Calandria, I know you guys fucking hate him, but he's a baller. Fuck you.
I
he's
actually
a good
like
player.
the way he plays. He's a gamer, but he's a wild card. I like. There's plays where he looks great. There's plays where he looks awful.
Also. I mean, can't you expect that from a true freshman? You think with a little bit more, maturity
and a hothead. He's got moxie.
Yeah,
he just hasn't reined it in yet.
Well, as you mature, hopefully you limit some of those mistakes. But at the same time, you always want him to be a gunslinger too.
I like him.
Yes, but to me, I still lean under. I mean, look, they could open up 4-0. It's very possible. Richmond at Wake Forest, home to Maryland, at Coastal Carolina. But I also think if it was up to me, I would probably only have them favored in 2, Richmond and Coastal. I would favor Wake in Winston-Salem, not by much. I'm talking 1.5, 2 points or something. Maryland actually would be favored by maybe 3.5 for me. But they could easily be 1-3 there. Yeah.
To Patty's point, I think this is a 4 or a 5 win team. I might have them winning 5, but it's not going to be one of my favorite plays. I doubt if I bet UVA in either direction this year.
Right. Same.
Yeah, I would lean. I think you're looking at a team that's 3-9 or 4-8.
You're a hater though. So
is it possible? Of course.
I think we got to talk about the big boys, Clemson, Florida State, and I guess if you want to include Louisville in that mix. What do you guys think about them?
Well, Clemson, with the exception of playing Georgia in the opener, I really think
you can't go over.
Yeah, but I really think like they are due for a better year, and but they still have to play in Tallahassee. Like their road spots are tough, man. Playing at Pitt on November 16th is to me a losable game, and the week before they're in Lane on November 9th. Those are 2 cold environments in November. Then you have at Florida State, and you're basically playing Georgia in, I know they say it'll be 50-50. I bet you'll be more 70-30 that Georgia packs the Mercedes-Benz filthy roller rink in Atlanta. And it's a tough schedule, man. I feel like you're telling me 3 losses, I would lean under. I would lean under just because even the home spots, NC State's had a history of fucking with them. Maybe they don't win, but it's just a close game. App State's a very good group of 5. And they catch them the week after Georgia, which is perfect. And then you get Jeff Brohm and Louisville at home. I mean, I don't know what to make of that. South Carolina, they beat Clemson at home the last time they went into Memorial Stadium. So I would lean under. I could also see them hitting the over, but to me,
I mean, they
Georgia
were 8
and Florida State are 2 losses, right?
Right. It could be. They were 8-4 last year, but 2 of the losses were overtime losses. So they could have been 10-2 last year. I just think after the last couple of years, after watching that offense for the last couple of years, I think I don't think you can bet it. Sure. Could they go 10-2? Yes, but
they lost a ton on the defensive side of the ball. Like their defense was good. That's I'm with you. I think you got to lean under. I think they're looking at kind of a 9-3. I do think they got the number right. It's somewhere between, to me, like 8 and 10 that they would win. Yeah. And I can see right now, like the 2 times they'd be dogs would be Georgia and Florida State. So they'd have to win out, but I still think those road that back-to-back away in November is brutal.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this about that when they were at their peak, they were recruiting really high-end skill position talent. They aren't recruiting it as much anymore, and they're, complete refraining from the transfer portal. It keeps them from having. I mean, it's been apparent that they haven't had that elite NFL first-round skill position talent for a couple of years now, and that's what Dabo's won with. And without that, you're going to be playing close games again. You're not going to be blowing out teams. You're not just going to outrace teams. You play a bunch of close games, you're going to lose some. So
yeah, I agree.
And the more I look at Florida State's schedule, I think the over here is looking pretty nice. I think if you're telling me one team, do I think Clemson or Florida State's going to go over 9.5? They both have the same win total. Florida State, they could easily start off 8-0 before that trip to South Bend.
True, but I also think they lost a shit ton too. I would lean under on this too, just because
they might hit the portal hard though. They have in the last couple of years.
They brought in like 5 or 6 players from Alabama, but I just think right now, if Miami can get him at Hard Rock, which who knows, but Clemson, Miami. It's at Miami, which I guess that's a home field advantage. And then I feel like they show up for that game only. And then at Notre Dame, and then you're home. Yeah, I can see it. It is a better schedule than Clemson's.
Is going to be a loss. At Notre Dame is going to be a loss. But I agree with you. It's 9.5 for Florida State, or is it 10.5?
9.5.
9.5. I'm with you, Nick. I lean slightly over. It's hard to lean a ton over on 9.5. But I think I agree with you. I mean, honestly, is DJU a downgrade from Jordan Travis, or?
Yes,
I'd say downgrade.
He's a downgrade.
I disagree. I disagree with you. I think Jordan Travis was a serviceable player up until his junior or fourth year, whatever it is, year. He had a very good year last year, but the cards were stacked in his favor.
Here's where I would disagree: is DJU at Clemson and Oregon State never really uses legs.
Yeah,
and to me, the dual threat capability. How many big plays I felt like Jordan Travis would do on the ground.
Marginal decrease at worst.
Well, I would say DJU also he throws more interceptions. So
maybe
that would be another one. Yeah.
Look, Jordan Travis is a very good quarterback. I just don't think that A, he projects well as a pro, and B, like, I think I don't want to call him a system quarterback because I think he was a playmaker, but I don't think he was something super special. And while DJU certainly has his problems, he also brings other things to the table, that big frame that Jordan Travis didn't have, so I think it's maybe a marginal downgrade, but not much at all. I think
the real thing would be they are not going to be able to replace, like, they're not going to find Johnny Wilson and what's his name, the receiver from Michigan State,
Deion Coleman.
Yeah, those two,
or Jared Verse,
on the defensive line, like they got kind of rocked, and that's why I see it.
They're going to reload a little.
Yeah, but those guys are fucking studs, man. Yeah, those guys are like
top 5. That's true.
Yeah, like I get it. I do think they'll reload well. They'll go out in the portal. They'll spend that Saudi money, right? And I could see even 10-2. But I also think they're not as good as a team as a year ago, though. So I would actually lean under. I would lean under, but I could see 10-2. I like the schedule better than Clemson's.
Yeah.
So, and let's take one more look before we get out of here. I mean, one thing I was interested in UNC under 8.5, but let's look at Louisville. I feel like they made the ACC championship. We should at least talk about it. The Louisville Cardinals, year 2 of Brohm, 8.5 is the win total. Now you look at the road schedule just from the start. You are
how many games did they win? 9 or 10 regular season games?
10,
10, right?
Yeah. But they are at Notre Dame, which they did beat Notre Dame pretty bad actually last year, but at Notre Dame on September 28th, at Virginia, who Virginia almost beat them in Louisville this past year, at Boston College. That's nice. But then at Clemson is brutal. And then even first off, they have 6 away games, at Stanford and then at Kentucky. Those are the road spots.
Slapping them for years now.
Yeah, they should have beat Kentucky last year though. But I think that number's pretty accurate to me. Like I do think they're going to start out 3-0. So that Notre Dame game, I would favor Notre Dame being in South Bend.
Jacksonville State's a little dangerous, and even Georgia Tech can't be slept on.
They did kick Notre Dame's ass last year though, but I agree.
Yeah, I would favor Notre Dame. The Virginia could upset them. I mean, SMU could upset. Like
on the surface, I feel like what they're gonna drop 3 more games than last year with the second year head coach, but the schedule was so easy last year, and credit to Colby for pointing that out. In the off season in the summer, and that's why he had Louisville going to the ACC championship game. So I think they could be a similar team as far as talent, but they're going to lose more games this year. So I might stay away from this one. I think maybe a lot of like public money might be on the over, just looking at the record last year, but drastically different schedule.
I would lean under, but I still think they got the number right, because it wouldn't shock me if they went 9-3. Like,
it would be impressive. I don't know what I'm looking at football schedules right now, and I don't know if these are preseason numbers or postseason 2023 numbers, but Notre Dame number 5, Clemson number 19, and Kentucky number 23, all on the road. 3 road games against top 25. That's pretty much 3 losses most years for a team like Louisville. So I want to lean under, but
they would probably be favored in every other game.
Yeah, they played great last year. I wouldn't touch it. I think you're right. I think 8.5 is probably pretty close to the right number.
I could see both hitting.
True.
But I'm kind of with you, Nick. I think I would lean 8-4 more likely than 9-3.
Right. I could talk another hour on the ACC too, but that'll be a podcast in the summer to go through all these, because we still have 3 other conferences.
Let's hop on over. Let's hop on over to the Big Ten. It's the Big Ten. Here we go. Big Ten. Look, Illinois. That win total sitting at 5.5 for Bielema a year. What is this? 3 or 4? I think 4. Indiana. Kirk Cignetti year 1, 5.5. Kirk Ferentz 7.5. Don't insult me. Mike Loxley 7.5 for the Terrapins. Michigan. Wow. No Harbaugh. 9.5 is the win total. Michigan State 5.5. That's one that I really like. Jonathan Smith year 1 in East Lansing. Minnesota rowing the boat the wrong way. Win total sitting at 4.5. The Nebraska Cornhuskers 7.5 for Nebraska. Are they getting the Miami treatment? Northwestern off of a nice season. Win total sitting at 5.5. Ohio State 10.5. That's one that I really like as well. The Ducks of Oregon sitting there at 10.5 too. Penn State 9.5. That's where Franklin's lived. I feel like for the past 5 years is somewhere between 9 and 10 wins. Purdue. Ryan Walters year 2, 4.5 win total. The Scarlet Knights sitting at 5.5. UCLA at 5.5 after Chip Kelly leaves, and surprisingly, USC only at 7.5. They're saying USC is a 7-5 or an 8-4 team. Washington, even with all that turnover, 7.5, and the Wisconsin Badgers sitting at 6.5. What jumped out to you as the most surprising? Was it USC? Was it Nebraska? NC Nick, what was the thing that caught your eye first?
Okay, yeah, surprising and the play I liked right off the bat might be different. The one thing that stood out to me was Iowa, 7.5.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of like an over here because the schedule, it's not that much different. I mean, yeah, they have to go out to California once to play at UCLA, but UCLA in the situation they're in, that doesn't seem too daunting. They do have Ohio State coming to town, but other than that, I mean, they got Washington coming to town also, but dude, Washington is not going to win in Iowa City. So
no, they're at Ohio State though. They're at Ohio State.
They are. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You're right. Yeah. So chalk that one up as a loss. Okay. But they can still afford a couple more losses and get to 8 wins. I find this one pretty easy.
Yeah. Call me crazy. I think the only for sure loss is at Ohio State. They could win every other game.
Yes,
I agree. Yeah.
And the fact that they had so many injuries last year, and then they brought in former Western Michigan head coach Tim Lester. Remember when he took that Western Michigan team to Pitt? Pitt won the ACC that year, but Western Michigan dropped like 48 on them. Maybe he could be the difference. I gotta ride with you. I think Iowa over 7.5 is a very good play. That was one that caught my eye, but to me, it's Ohio State. I just don't see Ohio State losing 2 games.
Yep,
I don't. I understand they have at Oregon and at Penn State, but I just don't see them losing 2 games. Load up on that. The chat was talking about it earlier. Let's talk about this Nebraska 7.5 wins. Patty, see you buying it?
No, not yet. I think that's a little optimistic.
Year 1, 5-7. So you talk about 3 more wins. I mean, that would take a big jump. I would think, knowing how bad the Big Ten West was last year, their schedule has to be tougher.
It's still a fortunate schedule, though. There's no
Dude,
Michigan.
they could
you're
easily be 7-0. They could very easily be 7-0.
Now that I'm looking at it.
But let's be honest, though. Yeah, you're right. I mean, at Ohio State,
There's only
USC,
one
at
away
Iowa.
game, right? Or 2 of them at Indiana and at Purdue. I mean, sorry, go ahead, Colby.
No, I'm saying like that schedule is very favorable. But would you guys favor them to beat Colorado?
At home?
I feel like Colorado's ahead of them right now.
Oh, is it 14-7 last year in
No. It was worse than that.
Did Colorado pull away at the end of that game?
Yeah, it was worse than that.
Let me see what
I think Colorado is better, but they are at
They can
home.
still lose that.
36-14. That's right. No, they killed them. The Colorado blew them out in the second half of that game.
They could definitely lose it.
They could still lose that, but I also
Thinking of that.
think like Rutgers could beat them or Illinois could beat them. You know, like those are 50-50 games.
Well, the road trips on the second half of the schedule at Ohio State, at USC, at Iowa. I think that's 3 losses right there.
It is a nice schedule, though. I'll
It
say
is.
for the first year away from the Big Ten West, it's a nice schedule.
Again,
Yeah.
for a team that's not looking for a national championship run, to get your 3 probably hardest teams all on the road and just basically have 3 guaranteed losses penciled in, and then 9 winnable games other than that. Yeah, that's kind of what you want, I would think.
I'd pick under, but there is a path here for a pretty nice season for Matt Rule.
Who's running the quarterback position there again?
They got the 5-star coming in, Dylan Raiola. Right?
Raiola, is he projected to start?
Yeah, because Jeff Sims, or they still have the what's his Heinberg.
Yeah, the German guy.
Yeah, they threw like 3 passes a game with him last year.
18-year-old kid, if he steps in and goes 7-0, he will become Tommy Frazier 2.0 in the state of Nebraska.
Yeah.
They will love
Jeff
his
Sharp.
ass.
Shout out to Jeff Sharp in the chat. He goes, Hawkeye guy here. Hope you guys are right, but Nebraska will be improved. You're right. I mean, Nebraska and can McNamara stay healthy, but Nebraska did they were in a lot of games. I feel like they weren't just getting blown out. The Colorado game, I feel like, was one of the.
Well, that's been the case for 10 years.
Yeah. That's
I feel
a good
like we're
point.
higher on Iowa than Iowa fans usually are.
That's true. That's true.
It's interesting. Maybe
you
they're
know-
too close to the situation. Look, if I had to watch that offense every week, I might be right there with you, Jeff.
The one that I liked is Jonathan Smith coming in year 1 into East Lansing. I think right now people should buy that because to me, getting Aiden Childs to come with them was so huge. He's a stud. One of the things the Big Ten's always had such shitty quarterback play, minus Ohio State and Michigan, the quarterback play, and that dude's going to be a stud. So you look at that schedule, you're saying 5.5. I think they could easily start out 4-0. Florida Atlantic at home, at Maryland, home to Prairie View, then at Boston College.
Yeah,
Maybe 3-1. I mean, I wouldn't shock me. Would that shock you if they're 4-0?
Yeah, there's that's very possible.
You said it was at Maryland or
Yeah. So home to Florida Atlantic, at Maryland, home to Prairie View, at Boston College.
But
I
chances
put
are
him
they're-
as a dog in College Park, but
yeah,
3-1.
chances are they're 3-1 at best, maybe 2-2.
Now they have a 4-game gauntlet that's brutal. Home to Ohio
man.
State, at Oregon. They get a bye week and then home to Iowa and then at Michigan. But then the back end, Indiana, Illinois, Purdue, and Rutgers. This team, they're going to go 7-5.
Rutgers is not a team to be slept on, dude. By the way, did you see that they have the number 3 recruiting class right now in college basketball?
I did.
Things are happening in Rutgers, New Jersey.
I'm sorry, but to me, Jonathan Smith's too good of a coach, and that team had more. Mel Tucker had that team at least. They had some guys on that team. You saw it with Florida State landing Coleman. I think Jonathan Smith walks in with Aiden Childs. I think they're gonna. I'd take the over on the 5.5 right now. I think that's a very good play.
I like it. I'm on board.
This is one where Colby just has a vision on a coach, and it's already been proven at Oregon State, so I it's on my radar. But
I don't think that team was not. It's not like they lacked.
they're not
talent.
that bad.
Yeah, and then you bring in a star quarterback that was a big time recruit with him, who was in his system last year at Oregon State behind EJU. Aiden Childs.
Aiden Childs. That guy, I have no fucking idea who this guy is, but he's rated as the #1 recruit in the entire fucking class.
Yes. No, everyone's
That's unbelievable.
He's a dual threat quarterback, and a lot of people have him as an NFL player in a couple seasons. So
yeah, if that's the case, then yes, that could obviously make a huge fucking difference.
Yeah. So I think that's something to point out there. I don't know. USC at 7.5. Let's talk about the elephant in the room here. I mean, he goes 7-5. He's fired. You realize that, right? He goes 7-5. He is fired.
After all that money, what's his buyout at this point?
That doesn't matter. They got that Big Ten money coming in. Yeah. They'll go to George Lucas and say, "Cut me a check, George. All right, give me some of that Star Wars money.
Give me that Indiana Jones money."
But
it's a pretty tough schedule, though. I mean,
it is a tough schedule.
Just like we don't have to go through every game, but you're telling me you got LSU, Michigan, Penn State, Notre Dame on the schedule. That's tough.
I mean, and they lose Caleb Williams. Yes, it's very tough.
And they're just a soft team.
Yeah. I mean,
are we sold on? I forget the quarterback's name.
Miller Moss.
What, 6 touchdowns in the bowl game?
No, they brought in Mavia from UNLV, their star quarterback.
Okay.
So,
gotcha. So is he projected as a starter then?
I mean, I think they're gonna have a contest,
competition.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. They are soft. I don't think that's just gonna go away. But it is interesting what Miller Moss said in the post bowl game, whatever press conference. You know, now we don't have a guy that's focused on himself. We're focused on the team. Maybe that has an impact. That's a very small bit of information to try and, you know, project where they are moving forward. But I will say he played a hell of a game for a dude that has, like, you know, not a lot of hype around him.
He did. Look, we're going to jump into the Big 12. But before we do that, I want to tell you that the college football experience is brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NBA season with Hall of Fame Bets, a sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NBA and soccer bet with historical stats and data. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com. Use that promo code SGPN. You get 50% off your first month. Start research and start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, we are back, and let's take a look at the Big 12.
Before we get to the Big 12, I got one more play that we didn't get to that I wanted to put down as my top play of the Big 10, and that's the Michigan under. Yes. Michigan 9.5, right?
With Texas
Fresno,
coming to town,
Texas,
at Ohio
USC,
State.
Yeah. Washington, you know, come on, Oregon. There's a lot of fucking teams for a school that has a complete overhaul of the coaching staff. You know, lost their starting quarterback, lost a lot of studs I mean, I just feel like they're bound to have a couple more losses, and they won't get the breaks from the referees. You know,
well, and they lose their whole, like, a lot of their staff left. I'm with you. I think under's the play on Michigan 9.5.
Without commentary, also maybe look at a UCLA under because all that turmoil there.
Yeah, and their schedules. Remember, we had that as the hardest rated schedule, I think, in the Big Ten was UCLA. So, play the under on the Bruins. And now let's jump over to the Big 12 because it's the Big 12. To rattle them off for you, Arizona sitting at 8.5 despite the brand new head coach. That one right away, red flag. Arizona State 4.5 wins. Baylor 5.5 wins. BYU and Kalani Sitake 4.5 wins. The Cincinnati Bearcats, Patty C's boys 5.5 is the win total. The Colorado Buffaloes sitting at 5.5 as well. Willie Fritz in year one in Houston 4.5 wins projected, and Iowa State 7.5. You can highlight that one for me. Kansas sitting at 8.5. Jalen Daniels back, and then Kansas State 9.5. Oklahoma State 7.5. TCU 7.5. Texas Tech 8.5. UCF 8.5. That one was a bit shocking to me. Utah 9.5, and West Virginia is sitting at 6.5. Yeah, to me, the thing that stood out, I think they're disrespecting the shittier teams in the conference. In my opinion, I think there's value on Arizona State, BYU, even Cincinnati, Colorado, and Houston. All of those, like Willie Fritz comes in. I think he's a very good football coach. That Houston, he brought in a bunch of his Tulane guys too. I think that team's going to be I think they'll be all right. Houston was in a lot of games last year. It wasn't just Holgorsen was complete ass. They lost a lot of games. They were 4-8 or whatever, but they were in some games they easily could have won with better coaching. I think Colorado just a year, they're just going to have they're going to be a lot more talented depth wise with how many transfers he's bringing in yet again. Cincinnati, we hit on this on the Big 12 schedule preview. I like their way their schedule sets up. I don't know about Satterfield, but their schedule is nice.
Yeah. Satterfield, they can't be as dumb of a team as they were last year. They can't make all the mistakes they made. It's not possible.
Yeah. BYU at 4.5 though. I just tend to think that they'll be better than 4-8 is what 5-7, 4-8. And then Arizona State, to me, the second half of the season, they looked a lot better than the first half of the season. I really think they're disrespecting the seller. Like, I don't think there's a big gap between Houston, Arizona State, and Colorado, and UCF, TCU, Iowa State. Even Arizona, I'll throw in there.
You think
Texas Tech?
I don't think they knew what to do with a lot of these teams. Like Houston last year was 4-8. So it's almost like, all right, we're going to go right around there again. BYU was 5-7. All right around there again. I don't know why they think Cincinnati's going to make a decent jump. They would have to double their win total from last year to hit 6. But the schedule is, I think we had her both ranked easiest in the Big 12. So the schedule is much lighter. But I don't feel great about a lot of those teams either, though, because I don't know how good they are. You mentioned a couple of them that stood out to me. It was UCF. I don't know. I don't think UCF's going to get to 9. I don't think UCF's going to get to 9. I don't.
Texas Tech and UCF are both ones that you're just sitting there saying, I don't know about that.
I want to say Texas Tech was at the same spot last year, and they didn't hit that. And I don't think they're going to hit it again. I mean, this is going to be a gauntlet here for these teams. And I think you mentioned Iowa State too. I think Iowa State at 7.5 is probably a bit too low.
Especially, I think they return the most production in America. So
what's their non-con? Is it just Iowa? Is there only Louisville non-con?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're a contender. I said this on our episode to take a future on them to Big 12 champions. But yeah, what's up?
You mentioned right off the top, my favorite play is Arizona. I think under 8.5, that's pretty straightforward.
Well, especially when you add in the fact, I think Brent Brennan's a great coach, but they lost their staff. They lost some dudes in the portal. That star running back went to Washington. You know what I mean? They lost some guys that I just can't put them in the,
Dude, they're not getting to 9 wins. They're not getting to 9 wins.
Yeah.
They're going to be 2-2. They got to go to Kansas State and they got to go to Utah in the first 4 weeks.
There you go.
Yeah. Fuck that. Not happening.
Yeah.
And a couple other ones that looked appealing at a first glance was, I don't think TCU gets to 8 wins. So I like the under on TCU. And maybe I think Kansas could get to 9 or 10.
They could, but to me, that's what I'm saying. That chunk of TCU, Texas Tech, UCF, all in a row.
Yeah,
it's bold. I thought all three. I was like, they're off on those numbers, and they're too disrespectful to the programs like BYU.
I want to go say now that this conference is the one where we're going to see the most line movement or total movement, whatever you want to call it, between now and May or June. I think these are going to get a little bit sharper because some of these are like, what?
Yeah. I mean, that's going to be a fascinating one to break down in a couple months. But anything else you guys want to highlight on any other Big 12 team before we jump to the SEC?
That's about it.
All right, let's jump on over to the Southeastern Conference because the win totals, first off, Alabama 9.5. I'm going to back Patty C's Michigan logic here. Their whole team transferred. I will take the under on Alabama right from the start. Arkansas 5.5 is that win total for Pulled Pork Pittman in what could be his last season in Fayetteville. Hugh Strip Club Freeze and the Auburn Tigers sitting there at 7.5. The Florida Gators with maybe the hardest schedule in the nation at 5.5. Whew. The Georgia Bulldogs 10.5 is the win total, kind of like the over there, and I think that's a solid play. Kentucky, the Wildcats 6.5. LSU, Brian Kelly and his family are sitting there at 9.5. Lane Train, Ole Miss, winners of the portal. The Portal King was back at it again. 9.5 is that win total. Jeff Levy in year one, and Starkville 4.5. The Missouri Tigers, they bring back a bunch of pieces. Great, exciting year last year. 9.5 is the win total. Oklahoma in year one sitting at 7.5. Shane Beamama is sitting there at 5.5 for the Gamecocks, and Josh Heupel in Tennessee 8.5, and the Texas Longhorns with Steve Sarkisian's crazy new contract. They gave him a Jimbo Fisher contract. I don't know if you saw that shit. 10.5 is the win total. Personally, me, I love this one right here. Texas A&M 8.5 with Mike Elko in year one. I like the way the schedule breaks down. Remember, we did that episode. I think the over's the play there, and then Vandy sitting there at 2.5, despite them getting Diego Pissing Pavi and Jerry Kill to come aboard. The thing that jumped out to me first, I think, believe it or not, I think Alabama 9.5 is bold, considering they lost.
But you
a ton.
agree that you think it's bold that they'll give them 9.5 wins?
It's like Michigan to me. It's like you got to play the under because they're replacing so much. They're replacing more players than Michigan.
I have to disagree with you. They have recruited at such a higher level than Michigan, and they're bringing in such a more proven coach as in terms of like a head coach winner.
No, I agree with that. I mean, the track record's good, but to me, you just lost too many players, though, man. Their whole starting lineup is gone.
It's true. They got hammered, so they got their work cut out. But I feel like Alabama 9.5 wins. When was the last time they didn't get that?
When they didn't have Nick Saban
ago?
When they didn't have Nick Saban. Well, they don't have Nick Saban anymore is my point. And to me, like when you say they got Georgia on the schedule, man, they have a home game against Georgia on September 28th. They play at Tennessee, at LSU, at Oklahoma. Those are lose, and Missouri is a good team that they play at home. They also play at Wisconsin in the non-con. I mean, I think they should be fine there, but you never know. I just think it's a lot to ask for.
I'm kind of with Patty here. I think it's a 5-game schedule. I think there's 7 chalk 'em up wins, and then the Georgia, Missouri, and then at Tennessee, at LSU, Oklahoma. Could they go 3-2 in that mix? They could. Colby, I'm with you. I think I'll probably choose under. I think this is probably a 9-3 team, but I could see 10-2 here. So I think it's either 9-3 or 10-2. So I don't think this is that outlandish.
I mean, I think it's the same as Michigan's because when Washington, you highlighted Michigan's schedule.
Yeah.
Washington, you highlighted as one of their harder games. Washington lost everybody.
Yeah.
So to me, that game in Seattle is very winnable for Michigan. All right. The same way I would say Alabama at Oklahoma is very winnable for Alabama, but it's still a hard game.
Look,
no, I hear you, but I wasn't as big on Michigan under either.
Kalen DeBoer just took fucking Washington to the national championship with.
He also had a
ton less talent. He had a great quarterback situation, right? But a ton less talent than he's walking into at Alabama, I believe, even with all these players. Maybe I'm wrong, right?
Maybe he's a quarterback whisperer. Maybe he can do some things there. And
he's got one of the Heisman favorites coming back.
To Patsy's point, talent-wise across the board, even with the Alabama players that are leaving, does he have more talent now than he did this past year?
Yes.
No sure, question. But I would argue this schedule is way harder than that.
It's true.
Yeah, I mean the Pac-12 schedule last year,
for Washington it was tough, but dude, I still think like the road spots here, man. Like, I don't know, man.
I think 9 or 10 is right. I think Vegas got it right. I don't feel like it's a lock, but to assume Alabama is going to go under 9 or hit 9 or under, I think that's that you're really disrespecting.
Well, I just have it as the same as Michigan. It's not my favorite play on the board. My favorite play on the board is Texas A&M over.
I like that one. I think the schedule lines up nicely. We're expecting Elko to maybe turn it around very quickly, like he did at Duke.
And you want to talk about walking into a talented roster? I mean,
there's landmines on there. There's landmines on the schedule too, though. So, I mean, Notre Dame out of conference, right?
I think they'll get him. Remember,
and then Texas,
Riley Leonard
LSU,
was his quarterback last year.
Yeah, I like the over
all
there.
All of them are at home, dude. Look at that road schedule. That road schedule is great.
I definitely agree with some of the guys in the chat saying the sharpest lines right now are definitely in the SEC, which I'm not surprised. I think more people are going to bet SEC than anything else. So not a lot came off, screamed at me here. I like Missouri this year. I like Missouri to maybe make the playoffs. I'm going to go the over 9.5. They won 10 regular season games last year. I think they can do it again. What else stood out for you guys?
I'll tell you what stood out to me.
Florida under.
Yeah,
maybe, especially if they lose that
toughest
Miami
schedule
game.
in the country. And I think last year, where'd they go last year? 5-7.
yeah. And this schedule is ridiculous.
That's one where the wheels could fall off after week 1.
Maybe Graham Mertz has improved.
Yeah, buy his T-shirt.
That's some sarcasm.
You know what the
Patty,
home
were you
run to
gonna
me
say?
is?
What's that?
Oklahoma on the over of 7.5. What is the game that they're going to lose? What is the game they're going to lose on that schedule?
Texas.
They got Alabama at home. That was one of the ones you said could be a loss.
Yes, but I'm
And
saying
then
I said
it's
Texas.
not Texas. They beat Texas last year.
I understand that, but
Well, the year
Texas
before
is
that, they
pretty
got
loose.
whipped by Texas.
How have they done over the last 15, 20 years? Here's my point: is they lost to Texas 2 years
They have
ago
a tough schedule, man.
with a brand new fucking coach.
I like the
right?
under.
No, I
Yeah.
just what? You are out of your mind. Bet me right now.
Patty
Bet
C,
me
you just
something.
hold on. What did you just say when we did the Louisville one? You said look how many ranked teams. So look right now. Number 16 Tennessee, number 4 Texas, number 6 Ole Miss, number
Tennessee.
7 Missouri, number 9 Alabama,
Texas.
number 12
Wop, wop,
LSU.
wop, 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 wop.
Even
None of
like even at Auburn is like a
Yes,
50,
they're gonna,
50 game.
especially Hugh Freeze year
You
2.
guys are like it's an. Do you remember when Oklahoma won the Big 12 like 6 years in a row?
They
just
ain't in the Big
recently?
12
yeah,
anymore.
and all
Yeah,
those
well,
players
guess
are
what?
gone.
I don't know about
No,
their whole
Oklahoma.
offensive line
one
transferred.
step back when they lost both their Heisman level quarterbacks and they had a brand new coach switching their system completely in year 1. And when they went 6-6, okay, and then
6
they
and 7.
rebounded 6-7, whatever. And then they lost to the 13-0 Florida State Seminoles by 4 points in the bowl game. Okay, a pretty decent improvement there. Then they proceeded to go 10-3. Right, and now they're back on track to become an Oklahoma, like we know them.
I don't think you've paid attention.
7-5. Come on.
I don't think you've paid attention to who they lost in the portal. Dylan Gabriel went to Oregon. Their whole offensive line transferred or graduated. That's what I'm saying. I
It's
think
hard
they have
for me to like keep up with all that shit. Yes, it's all over the place.
They
So
have
maybe
they have a big uphill climb to me on with that, especially the road schedule, man. The road schedule. I have Auburn favored at home against Oklahoma. I have Texas in the rivalry favored. I have at Ole Miss. I have Ole Miss favored. I have Missouri favored. I have LSU favored.
they're going to beat 4 out of those 5 teams. They will beat 4 out of those 5. Yes, they're better than all those fucking teams. You got hyped on Brian
They are
Kelly
not
last
better
year. They
than
fucking
Missouri.
sucked.
Missouri?
They're as good as Missouri.
What did
I
you watch
disagree.
last year? What did you watch last year?
Missouri
They
was
have no
good.
one on their team as good as Luther Burden.
Luther, is he coming back? Luther Burden?
Yes.
He's coming back. Okay, so that's
He has
that's
to. Well,
Yeah,
unless
was
he
he,
transfers.
year
He can't go
2
pro.
there.
Yeah.
I
I don't know if this has staying power, but Arkansas is what I'm going to start calling them because they are going to be the new Arkansas.
They are.
Oh well, it's not happening this year.
That doesn't quite roll off your tongue. I don't think that has.
And I
staying
think
power.
you're wrong. The reason why Arkansas, went back to like mediocrity after leaving the Big 8 was because they no longer had a recruiting pipeline to Texas because they weren't in the same conference. Oklahoma's not going to lose that, and Oklahoma is now going to, become an even bigger national recruiting brand because they're in the SEC. So I don't.
You
really
could
see
argue that a lot more teams have that pipeline into Texas now too.
Yeah, but none as established as Oklahoma.
I'm sorry. I'm on the under. I just don't see.
Bet
it.
me,
Yeah,
both of you.
I will bet you.
Beth,
All right.
what are we
Bet you.
doing right now? Mark it down. February
I got
21st.
I got them at like 4 or 5. I'll get one.
I'll bet you
I got them
both
at 6
5
and 6
shots.
6 and
So
6.
I will take 10 shots, and you guys only have to take 5. Right?
I got them at 6 and 6 at best, 7 and 5.
You're
That's
out of
a-
your mind. You're out of your mind.
Our handicap is 2-1. Shots going up against Patty C.
Bring it.
Folks,
And when
that's our
Oklahoma
show.
wins the SEC this year, you guys will be going, what?
What are they giving you over there? By this Bosworth beginning, all of a sudden, next thing you know, Patty C. Here, I'll play your fucking music if that's what
like
you're really
it.
asking for. All
That's right.
right,
I'm getting royalties right now.
He's trying to take my song.
their entire offensive line transferred out. Good luck in year 1 in the SEC.
Reload.
At Oklahoma, not recently. Folks, subscribe to the College Football Experience Look, I see a bunch of people in the chat. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, youtube.com/The College Experience. You can watch this. We talk college football year round, obviously college basketball, college baseball, everything year round. Let's go. Hop on over here. Give Patty C a follow on Twitter at PattyC831. If you're a Sooner fan, get over there. Tell him Boomer Sooner. NC Nick is on Twitter at NC__NICK. I'm on Twitter at DColbyD. The College Football Experience is on Twitter at TCE on SGPN. We'll be back next week talking more college football action. And remember, later tonight, the College Basketball Experience will go live talking college hoops action as the road to March heats up. And tomorrow you also have the College Baseball Experience previewing the weekend's games, Carolina, ECU, and a big one. Yeah, we're going to talk all that stuff. Check out the Sports Gambling Podcast as well, and the Bottom Line Bombs Podcast with CJ Sullivan. And yeah, until next time, folks, this is the College Football Experience. You better start thinking about yours. And we are out of here.
Run and shoot. We can really run and shoot.